for joining. If you're a total beginner with watercolour, the best way to start off is by practicing some techniques. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to use the wet in wet technique. This is where we apply clean water to the paper first and then we start painting. I'm going to show you 4 different ways to use the wet in wet technique to create a wash. A wash is a brilliant starting point for your painting as it's great for making different kinds of backgrounds. So here's all the materials you're going to need to begin. I always use 2 jars of water. One I keep for clean water and one for the dirty water to wash the brushes in. Good quality watercolour paper. I'm using a 300 GSM watercolour block. It's glued on all 4 sides, which means I don't have to worry about stretching the paper. You need your paint in pan form or in the tubes. You need a palette for mixing. I'll be using a couple of different brushes, a flat and a round in 2 different sizes. If you need some more information on what materials to buy, then please check out the Materials for Beginners video. I'll put the link in the description. Okay, so let's get started. First things first, tape off 4 sections on your watercolour paper. Then we're going to mix some colours so that they're ready for us to use. I'm using my small round brush to apply some water to the pan to activate the paint. I've chosen to start with alizarin crimson, but you can choose any colours that you like. Sap green is my second colour and I'll go with gamboge hue from my last colour, which is a lovely bright yellow. Remember to try and keep 1 jar of water clean and uncontaminated. So now we're ready and we're going to start with what's called a flat wash. We're aiming to get a nice even coverage of solid colour. Apply the water in broad, concise strokes until that area is covered. Aim to give the paper a nice sheen. Don't use too much water because we don't want puddles forming. Just use your best judgment. Different paper thicknesses will absorb the water differently. Now repeat the process but use the paint this time. Apply the paint with broad strokes running in the same direction. Don't worry too much about lines at this stage because the paint will blend out as it dries. You should have a nice even coverage now. So let's move on and let this one dry. So now we're going to try a gradient wash. We're going to start with a solid colour at the top and then fade it out lighter and lighter as it goes down the page. Apply the clean water first to the top part of the page only, and then we're going to apply the paint. So take your colour. I'm going to use the sap green for this one and just put the paint where we've put that water at the top of the page. You're going to want to make this quite strong as we're going to use this paint to fade out towards the bottom of the page. Wash the brush thoroughly, then take some clean water and apply it just underneath where the colour is, overlapping into the colour just slightly. This will start to draw the colour downwards, so repeat this process with fresh water until you get down to the bottom. As you can see, the further down we go, we're drawing the paint, but it's getting lighter and lighter. So when this dries, we'll have a lovely gradual fade. That's our gradient wash. Okay, let's let that one dry and move on to the next. So we're going to try blending 2 different colours in a flat wash this time. Start with the wet and wet technique. Apply the clean water to the area of the page. I think I'm going to use the gamboge hue and the sap green because they'll blend together nicely for this one. I'm going to start with the yellow. I'm just going to apply it to the bottom half, and I'm going to try to leave a little gap in the middle between the 2 colours, which we can use for blending later on. Make sure you thoroughly wash the brush so it's not contaminated, and use the sap green in the top half. So with a clean damp brush, we're just going to blend the 2 colours together in that middle section. You don't want to do too many strokes here, as you don't want to start muddying the 2 colours. You want to do just enough so that they blend nice and evenly. That looks great. We'll see what it looks like when it's dry. So for our final experiment, we're going to do a variegated wash. This one's a little less uniform than the rest. With a variegated wash, you can create some really beautiful blends and shapes, letting the watercolour move on the page as it wants to. This is a characteristic that I really love. So using the same process as before, we're going to wet the paper until it has a nice sheen. Then I'm going to use the large round brush to take the paint and drop it onto the page where I want it. We don't need to cover the whole section for this, so it'd be nice to leave some of the edges clear. I'm just going to drop the paint into this area sporadically, so you can have areas where the paint is darker and richer, or you can have areas where it blends into the second colour. This one's really up to you, so just go for it. So I'm taking a second colour now, and I'm just going to try and drop it in and around the other colour, not mixing it too much. I want to let the watercolour blend itself on the page. If you feel like you've put too much water on and the edges of the paint are starting to really branch out or run, you can take a clean, lightly damp brush and just lift up a little bit of the water to tidy up those edges. Try not to keep dabbing it too much. One of the most important things with watercolour is knowing when to stop. So I'm going to stop there. We're going to let that one dry. You can either leave it to dry completely on its own or help it along like I have with my hairdryer. Once it's completely dry, just gently peel the masking tape away. You might want to write underneath the name of each experiment. And now you've got this experiments page to refer back to when you need it. So whether you've learnt something new or you were just refreshing your skills, I hope you've enjoyed painting along with me. Please check out my other tutorials, and if you're enjoying them, subscribe to the channel to keep up to date. Thanks everyone, I'll see you next time.